Good afternoon, everybody. As you'll see from my first slide, it's pretty obvious, I am not Paul Rawlings. So anybody that is here specifically to see Paul, I can expect a mass exodus now. You'll be lucky to know that I am less geeky and a little bit funnier, I hope. So hopefully on this graveyard shift we'll get through this all right. I am Mark Catterall, who is the Head of Business Development for Digital Out of Home for ScreenReach Interactive. As you can probably tell already as well, I am from Scotland, and unfortunately for you all, the subtitle machine is broke, so if you don't understand anything or I do tend to get excited and speak a little bit too quickly, then certainly just put your hands up and ask me any questions. What we really want to kind of talk to you today and see if we can offer some thought into learnings is how interactive technology can maximise digital signage engagement, and then look at how away from the digital screen we can engage the consumers for longer and keep them engaged with the brand or the content that they initially interacted with. Now at ScreenReach, we developed a product called Screech, which is an interactive technology that sits on mobile smartphones and allows real-time two-way interaction with any content on any screen. But there's a great drive at the moment from brands and advertisers and digital out-of-home providers to offer some sort of interaction with the client, and we're all looking for that nirvana where we can find a solution that's really going to resonate with consumers and get them to activate in great numbers. But I think we're all of the belief that passive media is dead. What is really engaging people is engaging media, and that's what the consumers want to consume. The constant flow of new technology and the consequential shifts in consumer behaviour are creating an exciting but challenging communication landscape for us all. When you look at the consumers want to be involved in the conversation, and they want to take part in an experience with the media that we're providing, and they want it to be memorable for them as well and use it to their benefit to get something of interest, something of value and something rewarding. Got the next slide here. Now, we really see screens at ScreenReach as gateways for people. There's 2.5 million digital out-of-home screens globally now, and they offer lots of different solutions for lots of different things. Some of them offer as a companion to people while they're travelling and giving them information of where to go or the best route. They can be used for consumers to explore new opportunities and new things to do, and they can be used to introduce new products and brands in a more targeted and a selected way. But they can also be screens that can be gateways to unforgettable experiences, as I had on Saturday night watching a dancing dog on the television. But they can be memorable for people, they can offer us something of value, but is there still a problem that are we engaging with these screens in the way that the brands and advertisers and digital signage providers want? But the good thing about the screens is if we done correctly, they can offer deeper connections to the people that are viewing them. We can find out more about who that user is. We can point them on a path to purchase to where we want them to go, and we can allow them to connect with our brand or our product in a way that and at a time when they can take some action on it. But there is a problem, and the biggest problem is it's getting harder and harder to capture and keep the attention of the audience. And the reason being, it's sophisticated mobile phones like this. They're becoming more prolific. We have BlackBerries, Nokias, Windows, Androids, many other operating systems coming to the market day in, day out. They're accounting now for about 64% of UK contract mobile phones and 38% of pay and go mobiles in the UK. And when you look at the global numbers in every marketplace, the adoption of mobile phones and the sales of mobile smart devices in general is increasing. Apple sold over 13 million iPads in 2010, and with their new figures coming out last year, that looks like it's going to double at least. And all these devices make it easier for us to access the internet, and gain information while we're out of the home, which in essence makes our life difficult because everybody that is walking around with these mobile devices in their pocket has a screen at their hand already, so they can find out all that information that we were providing for them. They can explore what they need to do. And we need to really look at, is this the first screen that people are viewing now, or is it the digital out-of-home screen that we've so provided for them in years gone by? But for me, if I can get to my next slide, from adversity comes opportunity. These devices allow us to connect with consumers and allow our technology to connect with consumers in lots of different ways. And if we can embrace this technology and look at different ways we can use it for the consumer, then the content that we can provide can be far more engaging, and we can grow those deeper connections that I spoke about earlier. I'm sure we're all familiar with all the different technologies that are springing up in the marketplace, from NFC to RFID solutions, visual search, augmented reality, and they all offer opportunities for consumers to engage in lots of different ways. Sometimes technology can seem a bit gimmicky, and a lot of times clients can use it to show off or show a different way that they can do things, but is it something really that the consumer wants? And is it something that is of value to the consumer? And that's something we really need to think about today. Well, and we also need to think about that digital out-of-home is part of a larger digital media ecosystem. It's not a silo. It's connected to other media platforms and channels, and it must ensure that we tap into the strength of the complementary platforms. And if we really challenge ourselves to think that anyone that's in the digital out-of-home space is also in the mobile space, we are providing screens out the home just as the mobile doing, and providing that opportunity for new information. So let's embrace that. And I think mobile is the ideal conduit for physical to digital communication. It's the connective tissue between these screens, and it's become a natural extension of ourselves. It could function as a social key to personalised experiences. In areas like retail, users can bring the checkout with them using things like RFID and solutions like that. We can now have our payment wallet in the palm of our hand and use it not just to gain more information about what we're providing, but also purchase that at the moment in time as well. When we bring social media into that mix, for me it becomes the perfect storm. 50% of mobile internet traffic in the UK is for Facebook, and 500 million people worldwide access Facebook from a mobile device. When you look at Twitter, 55% of all Twitter traffic is on mobile. And those that already use their mobiles to access social networks do it so much more intensively. You only need to stand at, like myself this morning, standing at Newcastle Station on the way down here, and everyone was glued to their mobile, doing lots of different things, and I bet bar none there was a huge amount of them on their Facebook updating what they were doing. But what we need to do, that perfect storm's all well and good, but how does that connect to the screens that we want them to engage with? Well, we need to give them a reason to stop. And I believe that reason, every consumer, bar none, that looks at the screen is always thinking, what's in it for me? Whether it be, is that offer attractive? Is that something I want to purchase? Is that where I want to go? Is that giving me information that is useful? And when we think about, as I said earlier, a lot of technologies offer can be quite gimmicky at times. We really need to harness what we're providing the consumer and make sure it's right for what they want to do, and it's rewarding for them as well. And I'm sure you've heard lots of interesting discussions today about ways and means that can be done, but I just want to share a few of my thoughts with you. I think people want richer, more meaningful experiences that make sense to them. So let's harness the technology that's there, both in the social and mobile space, and make the experiences more personalised for the consumer. This is something people may or may not be aware of. We ran with Ocean Outdoor at Westfield in London, where we turned the screen into basically a large gaming device, and people could use their mobile phone as a games controller, using all the different functionalities and the technology that was provided within to allow people to drive a little car around the track and potentially win a prize at the end of it. But as I said earlier, is that a gimmick? Perhaps. Is it what people want to do on their Saturday afternoon while they're shopping at Westfield? Perhaps not. But we're in an evolution at the moment in the space that we're in, and we really need to factor all these things into account and investigate what people are doing. Now, over the course of that project, we ran it for 4 hours at Westfield on a Thursday afternoon, and 167 people interacted with that screen. Now, for a 4-hour period on a Thursday afternoon, we thought it was a decent number. So obviously people want to engage and they want to interact with content, and I'll explore a little bit about the things that we think people will be attracted to when they're thinking about what's in it for them. And as I've said already, it's the key is down to the content. When we're thinking about all these content that we're going to provide for people, we really need to think about and take into account where the screen is, or what size the screen is, with the location, the audience that's going to be there, and the dwell time that they've got to interact, because that can deliver all the different key functions and whether people will engage or not. But at ScreenReach, we've got a mantra that we work to, which is the 3 Fs, and I'll try and keep this as clean as possible. We think consumers want to have a bit of fun. So that's, if I'm on this example, that was a really great example of what McDonald's ran. I think it was Stockholm. The consumers could participate in a game, just as we did with the Swift cover example, and if they got a certain amount of points through the game, then they could be rewarded with a voucher or an offer which delivered a real path to purchase. Now, there's benefits in there for all parties involved. First of all, me as a consumer, I could play something on a screen and have a bit of fun while I'm out the house. And obviously you'll see the environment that's in there lends itself to a good dwell time where people are maybe hanging around with not a lot to do. And there's lots, just as well as there's a good example like this, I'm sure there's a number of bad examples where things have been implemented in areas where it's not of the right location, not at the right audience, and not at the right dwell. But if we can offer them the fun element to it, then we do believe people will engage. We're all in this life, we all like a bit of ourselves. You just look at the fame-hungry nation that we live in the UK, and things like Britain's Got Talent and X Factor. Everyone's looking to be famous for that 15 seconds. And what we can do, if done right, like the Angels Will Fall campaign that was run by Grand Visual and Kinetic, you can offer people a bit of fame. Get your face on the screen in the centre of King's Cross or Houston or the Bull Ring at Birmingham. Using Facebook and using social media channels, we could use that data that we're harnessing from that as part of the experience to put your face on the screen and be involved in the actual content itself. So instead of being a passive environment where it's a brand just telling me what to do, I can actually become part of the advertising campaign and become part of the actual media mix. If you look at this campaign, away from just the initial interaction and solution that they provided there was over 781,000 views on YouTube. So that's great brand equity for the company and loads of free publicity. And I bet a lot of it was people going on trying to find themselves after they participated or took part. I mean, the last F in it, luckily, is fortune, not another F that it could be. What we believe, everyone in the world that we're living in now, and everyone's talking about the dark days of recession, which is getting a bit grating now. People are rewarded by incentivising the content. So in this campaign that we ran alongside PhD and CBS in Ireland, people could play a game, have a bit of fun on what they were doing, but also just by participating, they were rewarded for participating. So away from having to use a text, and obviously a lot of text messages are in bundles now, so it's not a physical cost to people, but a lot of campaigns that run text-back mechanisms, we can now deliver that interaction at no cost for the consumer, but also on the back of it, I can be rewarded for it. And all the user had to do was download either an application or something on their smartphone to interact, and it was something that they could then keep after the initial interaction and process. But what we also want to do is deliver experiences that not just engage people one-to-one, but content that allows the screen to be engaged with thousands of people. So we ran an interactive quiz along with Kong Media at Wembley Stadium during the Challenge Cup final for Rugby League. And at half-time, a bit in a similar way to a pub quiz, everyone could use their mobile device as the quiz answer pad and answer questions that were on the screen. So we could have thousands of users interacting with the same screen at the same time. Not only that, as I mentioned earlier, with having a bit of fun along the way, their name could be put up on their Facebook data, could be pulled up on the screen as if they were a winner or as part of a leaderboard, so they got a bit of fame along with it. And everybody that participated got a voucher to spend within the stadium itself as well, so being rewarded in lots of different ways. And the most important thing for the people providing that content was that with thousands of people all interacting with the one screen, the data that they could capture off that and the touch points they had with the users was far more valuable, ending up in a higher return on investment in the actual interactive experience itself. But as I mentioned earlier, I really think we're in the early stages of the convergence between the three media channels that I spoke about, in mobile and social, and there's a lot of investigation work to be done on how we do that right. I think convergence can be very sexy for brands and for consumers because it can allow us a greater experience and allow content providers to provide something different. But for the brands, most importantly, it can allow us to understand a lot more about who the audience is that's viewing our screen, that's participating, viewing our products and viewing our advertising. We can profile that audience through advanced analytics and measure all the interactions and engagements. So not only do we get a better return on investment on our screens and our content that we're putting out, but the brand in turn can get a greater return on investment on what they're delivering on your portfolio. And as I said earlier, it is evolving. We really need to engage the consumers for longer and start a longer conversation. So what we need to think about is that the screen is just the detonation point for that conversation. Convergence allows the screen to stream information about consumer opinions, about controversial events in the world of sport. It could be a virtual store in a train station or an airport, or a gallery in a bar of who's in the joint that night. But what we need to do is have keep that user engaged and have that conversation while they leave that venue, leave that train station, leave that bar, and leave the initial detonation point. And by allowing them to interact once through and capturing them with a good piece of content, then that conversation can continue, and the technology that I've spoke about can allow more opportunity to do that. What the brand can do is not only by delivering good pieces of content, engage the audience at that moment in time, but they can have a conversation with them at a later date. Through the mobile phone, once they walk away, the user can check out of that experience and share it with all their social network, posting the experience they've had on Facebook, on Twitter. They can then, through push notification, we can talk to that user at a later date. And if the screen is the detonation point, then the value in that screen becomes greater. And as a digital out-of-home provider, we can look at really changing the model from a cost per thousand to a cost per acquisition. So if I am a user and I've engaged with a piece of content on a screen in a bar, for example, and then the brand wants to communicate to that user after that point in time through their mobile device, the digital out-of-home provider is the conduit for that. So surely the digital out-of-home provider can then attract more revenue for carrying that conversation because they were the initiation point from that. And that's what we want to deliver at ScreenReach, and that's what we're striving to look into and engage with both content providers and screen networks about. And we also think that the screen, if we can create super fans in a similar way by giving them a rewarding experience, they will advocate the brand well after the initial detonation. And as well as having a conversation with the brand, it's about other users and consumers having conversations with all their peers and their friends and family about what they've just done. and yet again the screen becomes the conduit if we can deliver good content that's memorable on it. If we're looking at the social media space, what we can do is create conversations through that move away yet again from the initial engagement and use further experiences. So, for example, if the user voted on their man of the match at a screen in a football ground on a Saturday, using the social media space, we could engage them and discuss what their thoughts and feelings are about the next match on the next Saturday, and keep them engaged in that conversation all week long, and not just at that moment in time where they engage with the content that they view. So it's been very short and sweet, and the reason for that is because I was asked in this very last minute. So my kind of closing thoughts on this is that I really think the screen is the detonation point for the conversation that we can have, but it's only going to be the detonation point if the content is right. And we're really just scratching the surface on digital out of home about what we're doing. There's an inherent problem at the moment that technology providers and creative teams, I don't think, in my opinion, are engaged enough in finding the solution. And we're all working off different tangents and looking at how the technology can work and then thinking about the creative. We really need to all get in a room together and bang our heads off the wall and bang our heads together to think about how we work that in the best possible way. And I just think we're just scratching the surface on what is possible and what is done. And all these other technologies that we see at the moment, which are doing fantastic work in my opinion, the likes of the blipper and augmented reality and QR codes, we really need to see them as just the gate points into the content. And it's let's think away from just how do we get people to interact, but what do we get people to do once they interact, and how do we keep them there after that point in time? So any questions?